What's up, everyone? Sean Count Blackgrith here today with a discussion video. This is something I've got a lot of requests for, and I actually got a request to talk about this on Instagram today, and I got thinking about it. It's like, I'll just make a video because it's such a long story. How did I get into metal, and what was my evolution musically? And before I get fully started, background, we are listening to Panopticon's revisions of the past version of On the Subject of Mortality. Amazing, amazing set. If you're into Panopticon, fucking pick this shit up. Incredible digipack, great booklet filled with liner notes, lyrics, all that great shit. Awesome set. Thank you, Marty. And let's talk about my music evolution. Now, I'm going to start really, really early with myself, and that would be my childhood, like my earliest childhood memories. Earliest childhood memories of music, Pink Floyd. My dad is into lots of different kinds of music, and Pink Floyd was always one of his favorites. And in the car, we had a cassette player. When I remember, he would always have Dark Side of the Moon on. And I actually have that very tape in my collection right now that I listened to when I was that young, which is really cool. But I remember hearing it and just being like kind of amazed by it, and I would try to sing along, but I couldn't. And I would try to air drum, but in reality I was just doing no rhythm whatsoever because I was like fucking 3 years old. I remember hearing that album over at his friend's house when we visited one time. So that album has always been there. But my real obsession with music began, I would say, when I was in first grade. So I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and that was with country music. I spent a lot of time with my mom. My parents lived together, so it's not like there was a divorce or anything like that where I was split up amongst houses hearing two different things. It was just I spent a lot of time with my mom when over summer when my dad was at work. Wherever she went, I went, and she would put on the radio, and it was usually a local country station. And I started to really love the music, and my first ever musical obsession was a country music group called Montgomery Gentry, and I still dig some of their stuff, and I really like the outlaw country, and for me to this day, outlaw country is the shit. I love like the 70s stuff, and some new dudes like Whitey Morgan and the 78s, but I was really into that for probably 4 or 5 years, and if you would have asked me when I was like in second grade, what do you want to be when you grow up, I would have said a country singer, even though I couldn't sing or play guitar or do shit. But I want to say around 4th grade, so maybe I was 8 or 9. My cousin, and as a little background, his father is a pastor at a local church, and he was in public school, then he was taken out of public school and was homeschooled by his religious family. And they didn't allow anything in their house that was not religious. And I have nothing against them. That my family, they're great people, and I don't want to hear comments about like, oh, they're fucking nuts, whatever. Trust me, I beat that one in the ground many, many times with my family about that. But he introduced me to a band called POD, a new metal band, and at the time he showed me the album. First he showed me the song Selah from their album Brown, and I hated it. My young ears hearing something that intense at that time, and looking back on it, it's kind of funny. It was just like, ew, no, I want to listen to fucking Brooks and Dunn. And when he played POD's mainstream debut album, which I believe is their 3rd album, The Fundamental Elements of Southtown, something about it fascinated me. I wasn't fully in love with it, but I really liked some of the parts of Southtown. And at first I was like, it's okay. And then he came over to my house and he left the CD in my CD player. And it was there for a week. And I kept that CD in and I listened to the song Southtown probably 10, 11 times, like a day. And like I remember being in fourth grade during gym class and kind of like singing that song to myself. And I didn't really dive much further in that. He introduced me to Blindside and Project 86, if any of you guys remember them. Blindside I still like, Project 86 not so much anymore. But he introduced me to them. And then by the time I was in 6th grade, I remember this moment very well. I was over at my grandma's, and he was like, so I just got this CD today. It's of a band called Zao. I was like, oh, what do they sound like? He's like, you've never heard anything like this. And he put it on, and it was the album, when Blood and Fire Bring Rest, or Where Blood and Fire Bring Rest. I can't remember which one it is. I know it's the same album, but I can't remember the exact wording of the title. Anyways, I'll just refer to it as Blood and Fire. When he put that on, and the first song, Lies the Serpents, A River of Tears, came on, and I heard the opening riff to it. There's something about it with the eeriness of those chords that they picked for that intro that really just made me go, whoa. And then I heard the whispered vocals of Your Eyes Search for Me. And being in like 6th grade, hearing that for the first time, I think I was... Maybe I was in 5th. I think I was in 5th because I was about 10, 11 years old. So I was about 11 when I heard that. And I heard that now when the vocals kicked in with the And They Search for Me. When that part in that song kicked in, something happened inside me. I don't know what it was, but I never heard anything like that. And I was fascinated. And I was like in love with the sound. And hearing someone sound like that, I told myself, I want to do that one day. I want to sound like that. I want to be able to do that. I didn't know this was even a thing. I thought POD screaming in some of their songs on like Southtown and all the songs on that album, like Outkast. Like I thought that shit was nuts. And then I heard Zao and I was like, this is insane. And then I kind of like jumped around metal for a bit because I was really into Zao. And then he introduced me to Norma Jean with the Bless a Martyr Kiss the Child album. And that was insane to me. Around that time, Demon Hunter came out with their first album. And that was the day I got that was the day my grandma passed away. And that album really resonated with me. But the next year for Christmas, I got a CD. I think I might be jumping around a little bit. But I know for Christmas, I can't remember exactly when I had Demon Hunter and when I got this CD, but I got a Headbangers Ball compilation. Headbangers Ball, the Music Volume 2. Now, I know there's a lot of you older guys that will remember Headbangers Ball from the fucking 80s and 90s and shit like that. For me, it was the 2000s era with Jamie Josta hosting, and I used to tune into that shit all the time, and I heard so many great bands. That's how I discovered Lacuna Coil. I discovered In Flames, and a lot of bands that really resonated with me at the time. And of course, like the new metal stuff, like Korn and Slipknot, I was really into. I'm still a huge fan of System of a Down. I still think they're one of the best bands to ever happen in rock music, in my opinion. And they got me this compilation CD, and I was so stoked because the first disc had a lot of stuff I was familiar with. There was Slipknot, Korn, there was Soulfly, fucking Fear Factory with the song Archetype, which is still one of my favorites of theirs. Lamb of God with Laid to Rest was on it. Shadows Fall with What Drives the Weak. I remember loving that song. And then disc 2 was a lot of stuff I never heard of before. There was 12 Tribes, the Dillinger Escape Plan, Deicide, Cradle of Filth, Martyr AD, Dimmu Borgir, and In Flames. And I remember putting it on the second disc on for the first time, and it was Cradle of Filth. And I never heard, I've heard of Cradle of Filth because I bought, for those of you, this is a throwback, Circus Magazine. I bought an issue of that when I was in like 6th or 7th grade because POD was on the cover. And I saw an ad for Rockabilia, and it was like all these different shirts. I saw Cradle of Filth, and I was like, wow, their logo looks cool. But this is before, everybody had the internet. And I heard Cradle of Filth, and I was like, this is really kind of like eerie sounding, but I didn't really like it because of the vocals. And as I dived into the second disc more, I found a lot of stuff I liked and a lot of stuff I didn't. And I got to the Deicide song, and it was Scars of the Crucifix. And I heard that song for the first time, and I was like, what the fuck is this? It was so heavy. The vocals were so evil sounding. Once again, it blew my mind and kind of introduced me to death metal, because immediately afterwards, when I was at school on the computer lab, instead of researching whatever the fuck I was supposed to research for whatever class it was, I decided to look up Deicide, and I looked them up, and I went to their Wikipedia page, and I just read their entire biography. I was like, this is insane. And it says they play death metal. What's some more death metal? And I ended up getting, because I used to skateboard back in the day, I bought an issue of Transworld Skateboarding. There was actually a Cannibal Corpse interview, and through that interview, I ended up checking them out, because one of my friends, he had a copy of Butchered at Birth. He didn't have the jewel case or anything like that, and he sold me just the CD. I think it was like $5 or something like that. I still have it, and the CD is beat to shit. And I heard that, and I was like, this is fucking insane. But the one song, though, and then from there I got into 6 Feet Under, unfortunately, and I kind of dived into death metal. When it comes to black metal, So, on that CD, the last song on the Headbangers Ball comp was Dimmu Borgir's Progenies of the Great Apocalypse. And this is my timeline for how long I've been into black metal. I believe I said this in another video. Maybe I didn't, I could be wrong. But my time frame for how long I've been into black metal is when Death Call Armageddon came out, because I remember seeing the commercials for it on TV. And I believe that was 2002, 2003. Anyways, I heard Progenies of the Great Apocalypse, and with that massive sounding orchestra and the vocals and just everything about it, like, really appealed to me. And I was like, this is unbelievable music. And I looked into them, and I saw the commercials for them, and like Shagger had pentagrams burning in his eyes, and they had the spiked bats and like the spikes on and shit. And I was like, this is so creepy. And the aesthetic of the band really drew me in. And I was like, okay, they play black metal. And I read about black metal, and I was like, you know what? This is a bit too much for me. Because at the time, I got into Disturbed as well, and my religious cousin was terrified that I got into them because they were a secular band. And they had a song called Believe, and it wasn't about Jesus, and he was going to tell my mom about their lyrics, so I was like, whatever. So, let's move forward another year, and I'm not fully into black metal. There was, on Dish Network, there were these channels. There was the Sirius satellite radio, which is still there, oddly enough. You could still listen to it on there, which is cool. And then there's also the CD channels they had. And the CD was basically a poor man's version of satellite radio. And on the CD channels, I heard Amorphous for the first time. It was a Black Winter Day. That is what introduced me to Doom. Because I looked into that, and people said that was kind of like a Doom album. And then from there, I heard My Dying Bride with the song The Raven and the Rose. But then also while I was on there, I was heavily into Lacuna Coil, kind of into Nightwish because I bought the Alone in the Dark soundtrack and that had I Wish I Had an Angel on it. And I know a lot of older guys will agree with me on this. Before like the internet was like this readily available thing, especially for me because I didn't have the internet till like full on like high speed and shit till like 2010. So compilations were a great way for me to find out about bands. But anyways, though, I was on the CD channel and Leaves Eyes Into Your Light played, and that fucking changed like my perspective on like beautiful music, and I got really into gothic and symphonic for a bit. But it came back like maybe 2 months later. I had it on Sirius XM in between commercials on Headbangers Ball. I flipped back, and they did Beyond the Pit, and that's when they bust out their like black metal and death metal and shit like that they normally don't play on air, which is why I don't like those stations that much. And they played Immortals, Blasphemous Mighty Raven Dark, and the only part of it I caught was the end with the organ and the thing, Blasphemous Mighty Raven Dark. I heard that, and then the guitar kicked back in, and I was like, whoa! And I ran over to, I took a piece of paper and I wrote down the name of the song, and I like plugged the phone line into the back of my computer that was in the living room, and I went on to Google and I typed in Immortal Blasphemous Mighty Raven Dark, and it said they played black metal, and I was like, okay, if I like Dimmu and I like this, then I'll probably love the rest of this shit. So I went over to my friend's house, and he had high-speed internet, all of that shit, which was just fucking mind-blowing to me at the time. And he was like, well, since you now have a Zune, I had a Zune music player, and I was ripping my CDs onto his computer and putting them on it. He's like, do you want me to download anything? I was like, won't you get in trouble? He's like, no. And he torrented the entire Immortal, Burzum, and Satyricon discographies for me. And that was my introduction to black metal. And here I am years later. I have every Burzum album that I care for. I have every Immortal album, and I have majority of the Satyricon ones I want. But I listened to those over and over again, constantly, those albums with my earbuds in. And of course, at that time as well, I got heavily into folk metal, like Korpiklani and shit like that. Korpiklani was my favorite band for years, but Satyricon really helped me, like, and Burzum and Immortal kind of bridge that from being like, I really like all types of metal, but I don't really have a favorite type, to it being like, black metal's it. And then from there, I discovered a shitload of bands, and here I am today. So if it wasn't for my cousin introducing me to 2 Christian bands, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys today. So, that's kind of my story and my music journey. It's kind of scattered the way I described it, and I hope you were able to follow it. But that's kind of like the timeline. So from about 2000 to now, I've been into like heavier music, and I would say from like 2002 on, I've been into black metal. It wasn't until like maybe 2004 I was like heavily into black metal, and I started wearing Burzum shirts and shit like that to school. Which, of course, the stupid rednecks would ask me, hey, what's a Burzum? I still hope some of those fuckers crash their truck. Anyways, what's funny is one of them did. Oh, God, I'm a piece of shit. Alright, that's really all I got to talk about today. Hope you enjoyed the video. If not, too fucking bad. And, that's it. That's my musical journey. And I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And I'll see you in the next video.